Good Monday morning, everyone, and welcome to Perspectives. We are coming to you live on MTV and on Perspectives Facebook page, also on the Facebook platforms of Partygrenada, TNR Communications, and MTV. It is Monday, December 20th in Grenada, Carriacou, Martinique, and we are waking up to news this morning that Grenada has suspended all flights from the United Kingdom. Just in case you missed it, news broke on Saturday that in the UK there's a new strain of coronavirus that's emerging, and scientists are saying that it is more contagious than the current one. So countries all over the world are taking this preventative measure, and so all flights from the United Kingdom to Grenada has been suspended with immediate effect. And let's get right into the program. That's the kind of news we have. I have Santa Claus here with me. Mr. Byron Campbell, of course, one of our special panelists here, and all dressed like Santa. So that bad news and you looking like Santa, that's a really nice paradox for me.
I'm bringing chairs, yeah. Hopefully, Brenda.
Yes, yes.
Hopefully. But true, it is the Christmas season. We shouldn't forget that.
No.
It's a feeling, it's a cultural expression more than anything else. Period of giving and sharing, and we must keep that in mind even within the pandemic. But it's a kind of week, Brenda, that whoa, it's like COVID. Parliament was, the Senate was overshadowed with COVID.
Right.
The one recall what the senators said. But seriously, the pandemic, I think, issues dominated the week, and clearly we had that tragic accident on Friday night, a young mother.
Yes.
And so how do we get over this? How do we move on? Should we assume that a new year is going to change everything for us, or it's going to be simple, a rollover? But certainly the pandemic dominating the spike we presently experiencing, is certainly dominating everyone. And certainly how we, I think the key question is not the debate around the issue of who's right and who's wrong, and who, in other words, how we contain the pandemic, how do we contain the virus, and how do we as individuals, how do we maintain our discipline, our behavior?
Right.
Because it's going to come down to an individual behavior, or what we do as individuals. That's going to make the difference. Whether we wear our face masks, we maintain the social distancing, the sanitization, and all these issues are going to be very, very, very important. Assuming that we all have the virus and relate on that basis.
Yeah. Absolutely correct. And it's a time of year that it's going to be a challenge for us because you use the word social distancing, but I like to say physical distancing. Because more than ever, with all the stresses and strains of what has happened throughout the year and what is happening now in terms of, people's anxieties being raised and the concerns, I think it is so important for us to be more socially available. And while we physical distance, there are the mediums that we can use to check on each other. All right, our phones, FaceTime, Zoom, all of that, Skype, whatever have you. Use all those WhatsApp, Facebook, whatever, to continue to check on each other. So physical distance, but let's just keep the interactions, because I think more than ever we need it. And I think too, we just need to be a little more conscious of how people are feeling out there, how we all are feeling. Because while some of us put on the game face, because we have to do it, at the end of the day, we are first human beings, and we're a small society, all interconnected. And last week in particular, the news was really hard on everyone. And there are those of us in the society that are basically bastions of information and the messaging and the delivery of that information. And we have to be so careful how we deliver, how we message, the tone, everything. I mean, you can't take away from whatever information you have to give, but by God, we have to be careful about how I would just use the local word, hype.
Yeah.
You know, just,
Yeah.
it's news is news is news.
Yeah.
Information is information is information. And we have to be very, very careful, because sometimes we think we might be doing some good, but we may be doing a lot of harm. Met lots of people last week. I was just going off the channels because they're hearing this here, there, and everywhere. And every time they think they know what's happening, it's because they hear or read something else. So we need to be very, very, very careful about that. While we are at that, I would just like to give special commendations. I took the time this weekend to I was busy last week, but I took the time this weekend to kind of look back at a lot of the news interviews that was on television and so on with the various personnel. And I must say special commendations to Aruna Neptune from Power 95. Aruna's interview with the Minister of Health was really good. It was the interview where she asked the tough questions. She got everything from him that we wanted to know, but in a very professional, very clear messaging. It wasn't a fight. You know, you didn't feel like a battle was ensuing. And I would really like to congratulate her on that. Very, very well done. And, you know, those of us who are in those positions, we just have to be, especially, I remember doing a course in St. Kitts, on a workshop in St. Kitts, how you message during crisis. And I think it is this is a crisis. And I think it is very important for those bringing the message to remember how you message in crisis. So congratulations to Aruna on that very, very good interview. I hope you go back and look at it.
So it was a conversation and it brought confidence. This is what you're saying.
It certainly did. And she had, it was on Facebook, it was live, and the viewers were there. And of course they were going crazy. And she had an opportunity as well to funnel their questions into him. But it was just done in such a moderate and such a respectful and really clear and professional manner.
Well, it's good to hear a media person also complimenting a colleague.
No, you have to do it. We have to do it. We spend too much time tearing. You know, we have to do it.
I
it was
agree,
well done.
There's a saying that you should think globally and act locally. And I think we need to pause and think, this is a global pandemic. This is killing thousands of people every day around the world. It is not only Grenada, it's everywhere that have their own issues, the way they are tackling the pandemic. There's a lot of mistakes being made globally. I mean, we heard about Sweden and everywhere else. I mean, what's happening in England? You mentioned about the variant to the virus. That's now when other European countries are locked down and banning travel of, you know, not just people, but freight goods. So this is bad. This is not a normal situation. And the unknown, the future is so uncertain, so we don't know. So I'm thinking locally. So understand the wider context, the global context, and we are part of this, because this is everywhere. And how do we, again, I'm making the point about personal behavior and our individual responsibility to ourselves and others. And we have to take this seriously, more than anything else we've thought about before, because this, we have our limitations in Grenada in terms of our physical and medical facilities. So most important, we have the preventative measures, or at least to restrain, to constrain the spread of the virus. Very, very important. I mean, I just want to appeal to all and sundry. Please.
All and sundry. And you use the word local. Every time we take our devices and we go live, every time on news broadcasts go live, every time on newspapers go on Facebook or wherever, it's no longer local, it's global. So that is something that we as Grenadians need to keep in mind as well. But moving right along, we're without our third wheel this morning. I can say a special good morning to Senator Christopher Deali. We miss you. We miss you. But we have a really great fill-in this morning. Our special guest panelist this morning is the Acting Commissioner of Police, Edvin Martin. Acting Commissioner of Police Martin was enlisted in the Royal Grenada Police Force on July 1st, 1986. He was promoted through the ranks and ultimately appointed Commissioner of Police Acting on July 2nd, 2018. He holds a Bachelor's of Science degree with honors in Business Administration and a Master's of Science in Criminology and Criminal Justice. He attained a number of certificates and diplomas in policing and criminal justice during his career. A graduate of the Federal Bureau of Investigation Academy, the FBI, and the Center for Hemispheric Defense Studies. He also served as an instructor with the Regional Security System, the RSS, for a number of years. It is a pleasure to introduce this morning Acting Commissioner of Police, Edvin Martin. Good morning.
Good morning, Brenda, and thank you for your warm introductory remarks. And can I say good morning as well to your listening audience, and of course, core with you, Mr. Byron Campbell. Certainly, it's a pleasure to be here and to share with you in this discourse. Thank you.
Wonderful. Before we get into all the tightness that we, all the heavy things that we have you here to help us unpack. I mean, we were having a conversation just on the general COVID situation. Of course, Grenada, the government taking the decision to suspend flights from the UK and all of that. And just general thoughts and all the news breaking and how people are feeling and so on. Can you just add anything to it?
Yeah, but thank you very much, and certainly it's a great opportunity to share in this regard as well. By personality and by nature, I'm an optimist. I'm very optimistic about situations and always tend to be driven by a solution-based mentality. And I do believe that this is a situation, yes, it is a dire situation and one that requires us to become very focused, but I am convinced and very confident that we can conquer this. I believe we can get out of this. But as Mr. Campbell indicated, our success in managing and responding to the current situation hinges significantly on individual attitudes. There is no amount of legislation or regulation that can actually address this. It is individual behavior that we need to try to improve on. And that power resides in each and every one of us. I have seen over time with the different challenges we've had as a country, be it Hurricane Ivan and so forth. Whenever Grenadians are under pressure, we respond and respond appropriately. I am very encouraged by the significant uptake we have seen in adhering to protocols, particularly wearing masks. And certainly I want to strongly encourage that and to ask all of us to play our part in ensuring that we can contribute to that national effort in bringing the current dilemma, crisis situation, as you referred to, under control.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. So 2020, quite a year. Summarize that for us as the Acting Commissioner of Police, especially on the crime front and how things panned out for the RGPF.
Thank you very much, and I do agree with you that 2020 was an unprecedented year. Certainly you read a brief bio, and there is nothing within the training there that could have adequately prepared me for 2020. And I will speak a bit to the responses as it relates to the pandemic in a moment. Yeah. But as indicated prior to us starting officially, 2020 started with quite a challenge. And in summary, we obviously had 2 homicides in January. Then we were on track for 2 homicides a month up until May. We had the fires at Grenville. Then we had the onset of, at Grenville Street, and then we had the onset of the COVID disease or pandemic, as they would say. And certainly in that, there were none of us in this country. It remains a very novel issue. It remains an issue that all of us are grappling with, government, police, everyone. But certainly it is one of the periods as it relates to the RGPF that I think I am most proud of. Certainly for my entire career, it is a time when I have seen the RGPF gotten more praise and recognition than any other time before. During that period of time, we received a number of assistance contributions, tangible and intangible recognition for our efforts in managing the pandemic. And so thanks to the persons who reached out to provide support to us, and of course thanks to the officers who did have to make human effort in order to help contain and deliver on the operational intent of the force in supporting the national effort. And so we continue now with pandemic. We are at this stage now where we are seeing more cases now than we have ever had for the entire onset of the pandemic. But I'm certain that whatever the national intent is, the RGPF will be willing, ready, and prepared to respond in support of that effort. As it relates to crime for 2020, I am very pleased to indicate, and I will try to unpack this as I go through, I'm very pleased to indicate that most categories of major crime, we have seen contractions. However, in each category, there are areas of concern. For example, in the category of harm offenses, which includes a suite of murder, attempted murder, manslaughter, wounding, maiming, causing harm, dangerous harm, to name a few. So when I say a category, it is a suite of crimes that is included there. In that category, for the period 2020 as compared to 2019, we have seen a 10.8% contraction in the number of cases reported to police. And over the 2-year period, 2018 to 2020, we have seen a total of a 19% contraction in those crimes. And that is for the period January to September, to the end of September. Now, that being said, having seen a major contraction in harm offenses, the concern in that category remains homicides. Or murder, because homicide is the killing of another person by another person. However, murder is when it is the intentional killing. To date, we do have 14 murders. Last year, we had 16. However, we have still recorded this year 17 homicides, which means that there are a few of them that was not classified as murder because the intent was not there. Certainly, this is very uncharacteristic and uncommon to our Grenadian culture. The level of homicides, as just indicated, has been sustained for the past 2 years, and we need to find a way to stem this. We need to find a way to pull this back. And we can probably have some conversations on that going forward as well. Another burning area is the issue of sexual crimes. And just to kind of, over the 2 years from 2018 to 2019 to 2020, comparing the same period, we are seeing a contraction of 22% in reported cases. However, the great concern for us here has to do with incest and sexual crimes with persons between the age of 13 and 16. Incest is concerning because incest speaks to the fact that this more likely is happening at home. And the home, quite frankly, should be the safest place for a child or an individual. And so that is very disturbing, and we need to find ways in order to bring that under control. And from 2018 to 2020, we are seeing a constant increase in incest. We had 6, for example, reported in 2018, 8 in 2019, but 56 in 2020. But again, I want to unpack this. The 56 cases does not imply 56 victims or perpetrators, because our crime is classified that every act or incident between a person is rated as a crime. So you may have the same, and in this case there is that. In this case you may have the same victim and perpetrator with multiple offenses, each of which is categorized as a single crime in this. Right. So it's not that we have 56 increase in cases of different people. It's important to make that distinction. So as it relates to sexual crimes, we need to look at the sexual crimes of incest, and of course particularly between individuals between the ages of 13 and 16. That is of serious concern to us. White collar crime for the period has been down by 75%. The other area of major concern is the area of property crimes. And property crimes include the entire suite of burglary, entering house by night, stealing, house breaking and stealing, predator larceny, stealing by employment, stealing from dwelling house, robbery. Anything to do with the taking of property comes under property crimes. This is one of our demons, and this is one of the suite of crimes that we are seeing an increase in. An increase here for between the period of 2018 to 2020, there is an overall increase of 10.8% increase in those crimes. And of particular concern in that suite of offenses is predator larceny and housebreaking.
Right.
And so we need to find ways to start to stem those incidents. Drug offenses, the suite of drug offenses, down by 20% over the period 2018 to 2020. And weapons also, we have an increase in this area, but I need to indicate I am not too concerned about the increase in weapons, simply because the removal of an offensive weapon on the street probably mean the reduction of a harm offense or a murder. So we actually continue to maintain a zero tolerance on offensive weapons, and there is a major push by the RGPF to crack down on the issue of offensive weapons, given its proliferation in the use of offensive weapon in the commission of harm offenses and also some of our murders/homicides. So we have to see some of those reductions as positives. For example, the possession of firearms, there is an increase of our detection of that by 66%. But if we are detecting it and taking it off the streets, it limits the potential of it being used. And so when we look at the statistics in crime, some of the increase we have to understand and take them in the context of the implication in maintaining overall safety and security within the community. So these is generally in summary, and we can flesh out any details you might have interest in any area. But certainly the cumulative effect we are seeing, there was, let me take it first, between the period 2019 as compared to 2018, we had a 4.6% contraction in crime over that period. But for the same period, 2020 as compared to 2019, we have a 4.6% increase, exact. So we are seeing over 2018 to 2020 that crime remains relatively stable in the number of cases reported. The important thing, there are a number of critical areas here where we are seeing encouraging contractions, but there are also areas of increase. And critical areas of increase, as I have highlighted, homicides, predator larceny, sexual crimes, housebreaking, that we definitely need to delve in and be able to find some mechanisms for resolving those and addressing them going forward into 2021.
Yeah. I guess going into 2021, predator larceny definitely, and the continued fight for in terms of sexual crimes, that would be high for the RGPF. Yeah, but you're bolstered now by legislation from the Senate, I mean from the Parliament, for predator larceny.
Yeah, we need. You're definitely correct, Brenda. We have already started looking at reviving some of our strategies and exploring ways and means in which we can further improve the quality of service and support that we give to farmers. A massive effort has now been made to try to revive the police farm watch schemes that worked very, very good for us in the past. Thus far, and to the latter part of this year, we have already gotten 2 up, that is in Grenville area and St. Patrick area. We will continue that effort into 2021, right after the holiday season, because this is taking the majority of our focus now is the holiday season and of course support for COVID. But right after this, we will be looking to get all our farm watch schemes back up, and then we will be looking to explore additional ways in which we can better support farmers. We are looking at the possibility to see how drone technology can assist us. It worked well for us during the initial COVID period in identifying clusters of persons. We believe that this technology can be utilized as well in monitoring farms and in collaboration with farmers, of course. So we'll see how we can leverage that technology in support, as well as to explore and partner to a greater extent with the ministry, farmers and police, working collaboratively in addressing the issues of predial larceny. But I must say significantly that the acts of predial larceny is fueled by offenders that are referred to as receivers. Those are the individuals who are buying the produce and making it lucrative for the predial thief. Yeah. So the predial persons, they have a market basically.
Right.
And so we want to appeal to members of the public. Do not be going out and purchasing predial produce from persons that you know do not have lands. Yes, maybe these persons might be coming and offer you what is $50 worth for $10, but that in and of itself should send a red flag. And we want to appeal to persons. Farmers work really, really hard in their lands, and so forth. They need to get the support that they can benefit and gain from their labor. On the issue of sexual crimes, yes, can't be agreed with you more. Our efforts into 2021, and we've already started this, is to expand the initiative of the Special Victims Unit into all divisions now. The Special Victims Unit has only been concentrated in St. George's, with providing periodic minimal support to the divisions. We have now decided that the success of this unit, we need to broaden the focus and entrench it embed it with CID in all of the divisions,
Good
East,
move.
West, Carriacou as well.
Good move.
You are well aware that as it comes to dealing with sexual crimes, the persons who treat with those cases must have special skills. Must have special skills in how to interview and treat with those victims. Yeah. We've had experiences in the past where how you handle a victim of a crime has a serious impact on whether or not the victim is likely to assist you as a witness
Absolutely.
in getting the matter to court.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes, and I'm not saying the RGPF is guilty, but if you are not careful, depending on how you handle a victim, they can actually start feeling as if they are the accused, as if they are wrong in the commission of the crime. Yeah. And sexual crime is such a delicate matter that I think we need specialized persons in that area. Hence the reason why we're going to expand the focus on sexual crimes and entrench it in all divisions.
Yeah.
Commissioner, first of all, I mean, high praise for the summary of the year, the statistics, the information. I think this is very well done. And certainly we have to recognize police officers or the department as frontline workers and the sacrifices that they make when we're sleeping. They're out on the streets patrolling. As we say, we really want to big up the force, particularly for this year and the current period. We note from your report a number of critical areas, particularly where we see in the property crimes, in the sexual offenses, a number of crimes. Clearly, we know that there is a relationship between crimes and social factors, yes? So in a situation of high unemployment, because what the COVID has done is a lot more persons are now unemployed, particularly young people, nowhere to go, you know, the constraints and the psychological impact on everyone. What do you think there's a relationship between these social, psychological issues and the upsurge in certain categories of crimes that we're seeing right now, as you outlined?
Yeah, thank you very much. And as a criminologist, I can tell you that crime has a bio, psycho, socio pathologization on crime, causation of crime. Yeah. So it's a biological, psychological, and social element. Yeah. And yes, economic situations create push and pull factors, but it would not be correct to say that unemployment alone causes crime. How then do you explain the person who works in the bank that steals? How do you explain the person who is gainfully employed? How do you explain the farmer who has 60 acres of nutmeg but wants to sell 65 acres and steals more or get people to steal more?
Right.
So unemployment alone, it creates a push and pull factor out of need. That is accepted, but it is not the only driver. How then do you explain the massive number of persons who are unemployed, have been unemployed, and do not commit crime? Right? So yes, socioeconomic conditions created pressures and stress, and I think it was Robert Merton that spoke to the issue of how strain in society, meeting expectations and needs within society, can create impact on an individual. And even so, when that strain, one of which might be employment, individuals respond differently. There are some who simply cooperate and comply and go along with society and the desired standards. There are those who will innovate, start getting into other types of crime, drug trafficking, whatever. And there are those who will retreat and just recluse from society, not meeting my needs, etc. So the point is, the stress and strain of environment, or the creation of anomie, if you may, or normlessness, causes individuals to respond differently. What we need to do as a society is to understand the different categories and response mechanisms and have tailored response to address all of those. Because the impact of an environment in every way impacts people, impacts everyone, but our response to it is separate and different. It's not a homogeneous response. And so in that context, as a society, as a law enforcement organization, we need to make sure that we tailor our responses to address all of the specific needs. But important in your point is the fact that social issues is critical. Modern criminology determination is more focused on the social causative factors than anything else.
Well, one of the other issues, Commissioner, is of course the downstream, that your prisons, our prisons, are now overcrowded. What is the strategy going forward? How do you deal with that, with the overcrowding issues? Because this itself could be a center for spirals in crimes. So how do you manage this overcrowding factors now?
Certainly a valid point, but sometimes I don't believe always that incarceration is the answer to criminal activity. And sometimes if we just look at incarcerating people, you might be making them a worse criminal than ever. And I'll give you an example. In my thesis, I did factors contributing to recidivism of male offenders in Grenada. That was my thesis. And I just want to give you as an example. There was one individual that I interviewed who was an effective bartender at a hotel. He was effective, top-notch bartender for over a year when the management recognized that he was convicted for possession of marijuana previously and dismissed him, indicating to him that you cannot work in the tourism sector with a criminal record. Up until the time when I interviewed him, he has since then been to prison 12 times. 12 times. Because to me, we have a sort of societal stigmatization against criminals or against persons who come from prison, that we do not afford them a second chance. And so when they come back out and they're not afforded a second chance, they then move towards their own and their own kind who are facing similar experiences, cumulatively contributing to a repeating pattern of behavior. So there have been one school of thought that says the persons who should be rehabilitated sometimes is not just the offenders, but we, the members of society, needs as well to be rehabilitated. In other parts of the world, England, United States, Australia, there are approaches where offenders who are incarcerated are taken out on a daily basis to put to work in different fields, to make a contribution, to learn a skill, but at the same time providing an opportunity for reintegration, successful reintegration into society. So the short of it, I do not think sometimes always that incarceration is the answer. I think we need to make greater use of restorative justice, and in making use of restorative justice as well, society must be receptive to that, because it is an agreement or satisfaction between the complainant and the accused to compensate by some other means. And of course, where there is a hardened criminal, I do agree that some measure of incarceration to serve as a heavy deterrent must be applicable. But the concern that we are overpopulated at the prison, and whether or not we do to add more, how that is contributing to life at the prison and actually maintaining the dignity of individuals whilst they are incarcerated. Yeah.
Commissioner, we've had some incidents this year which has brought the interactions of the police with the community into sharp focus. We had that Fort Judy incident, infamous Fort Judy incident, the police shootings at Grove and Cherry Hill. First of all, those incidents I mentioned, internally, I know there are investigations ongoing and so, but when this happened and there's that kind of a shift or tension between the police and the community, how do you assure those who get concerned based on police actions that the police is here to serve and protect?
Objectivity and transparency is the key in responding to those type of crisis situations. And to some extent, some of the responses that we had in some of those cases, by and large, in my opinion, specifically to the Fort Judy situation, had to be where emotions was a determining driving factor rather than fact. And there were a lot of emotional factors. Of course, reason for concern and to respond, no objection to that. Flag the issues that need to be addressed. But certainly in relation to the Fort Judy incident, we need to make sure that they are fact. And having looked back at this incident, the police did what they had to do. There was nothing different in the police action in Fort Judy as they would have done with action all over the island. In the sense that there was a case, as a matter of fact in that case, and I think we fleshed it out previously before on various media programs, the police respond to a call of the incident involving a dog. When the police arrived, the officer there realized it was more than that, and that there was an assault potentially causing harm on another individual. The normal action there and then of the police is to issue a medical form. Having observed that, and that was not the reason of his call, so the officer did well to identify the fact that there is another issue involving not just the dog.
Right.
And so issued the victim's concern then, medical form, get the report and come back. Because if the police has to charge, the police then need the evidence fact, what am I charging for? As I indicated in the type of crime, is it causing harm, grievous harm, dangerous harm, maiming? And we cannot determine that ourselves.
Right.
It needs to be medically certified. So once this situation is not riotous and there isn't fights and disorder, the police will not take you into custody immediately.
Right.
The situation was under control, people were under control. The idea then was to get the relevant evidence and documentation to support it and then take the appropriate response. As it relates to the incident in Grove, again, a very unfortunate incident. Our response history shows what our response were in recognizing of the situation. And the police force has evolved to the position where it is not fighting with the community, because there is nothing the force can achieve without the community. We depend on the community to report crimes. We depend on the community to be witnesses in court. And so without the partnership of the community, the police cannot achieve anything. Cognizant of that fact, whenever we are responding to cases involving members of the community, we must make sure that we use the maximum amount of tact. and that the use of any kind of type of forceful response must always be as a last resort and after you would have exhausted every particular effort. So of course, the situation involved and the spill out from it, the matter was investigated, and it was obviously revealed by the DPP then, who advised that no charges should be brought against the officer involved in the incident, nor against the family, indicating that probably there were issues on both sides. However, the community reaction after what was then perceived in their mind as an injustice, the response of the police was very, very much controlled and sober, and not allowing ourselves to go over the board and react without being carefully calculating the situation. And the same approach was taken in Carnival. The same approach was taken in Carnival.
Yes, very commendable.
Yes.
Your public relations clearly is making a difference, I must say.
Yeah. And in that situation involved in particular, I remember Superintendent Vanny Cohen, you know, on the bridge negotiating with the people who were highly infuriated at the time, emotionally charged. And I think that conversation alone probably preempted what could have been a very and highly explosive situation. So commendations on that.
So we're seeing what should I describe the force? That's just my experience. I'm more informed and more in touch, and a force that is communicating better. But an issue, Commissioner, is recently, well, for this year we've been hearing the issue of marijuana. Of course, it remains illegal to grow, to use, and to distribute, clearly. But from the political signal we've been getting clearly is that it should be, in instances, decriminalized, or other issues that point that so many young persons end up with a criminal record, the use of your resources. How are you, as a commissioner at the helm there, distributing your forces in terms of what's been traditional before and dealing with the marijuana issue generally?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. But before I get into the marijuana, I want to deal with a little part on the PR element coming out of those incidents. I think it's very important to say this. We are now adjusting. What we have identified is that the community will always be ready and willing to respond to wherever there is a perception of any kind of injustice or malpractice on the part of the RGPF. And we recognize that clearly. But we have also recognized that a lot of those reactions hinges critically on a lack of information. And so I believe what we have to do as an organization, and that is where we are trying to push our PR element, is to become more proactive in giving the community more information, in explaining more to the community so that people understand. We have to understand that the advent of social media now, every single person has the power to be a media person.
That's right.
Exactly, everybody broadcast. And so, however any person, whether trained or not trained, produces something, it could ignite emotions.
That's correct.
And what the RGPF has to do is to get ahead of that curve and present facts on the situation so that there is balance in the narrative. And hopefully that will help. I think the public will more appreciate that type of response. So a critical focus for us in 2021 is to further strengthen our community relations department so that we can be more proactive in enlightening the community. On the issue of marijuana.
Before we take the very all-important issue of marijuana, we must take a break. All right, this is Perspectives on a Monday morning. We're here with our special panelist, Mr. Byron Campbell. We're missing Senator Diali this morning. Good morning again, Senator Diali. Yes, smile. Our special guest panelist, though, is Acting Commissioner of Police, Edvin Martin. We take a break, we come back, we talk some more with Commissioner Martin on marijuana, and of course, we're going to take quite a bit of conversations about policing in the pandemic, and we take your questions as well, the general public. The number to call is 440-7171. We'll be right back.
I'm masking for my family and friends. Who are you masking for? A message from the Ministry of Health.
You know, sister, we are doing big. Much more to life than just living. This holiday season, I'm not taking any chances. I'm wearing my mask. And you should too. I'm COVID-19 smart. Are you? A message from the Ministry of Health.
You know, sister, we are doing big like the wind. Big like the wind.
Dreaming of taking a break and escaping to an idyllic, happy place? Well, finding it does not require you to go too far. You already live in paradise. All it takes is for you to go out and discover it. Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique are blessed with a wide variety of accommodation that satisfy any taste and budget. Find the one that suits you and your family and treat yourself while having peace of mind that your health and safety is a priority. Knowing that we have gorgeous waterfalls, stunning beaches, and flavorful cuisine, let's be tourists in our own islands and enjoy paradise at home.
Welcome back to Perspectives. We continue our conversation here with the Acting Commissioner of Police, Edvin Martin. Before we took the break, the question from Mr. Campbell was on marijuana. So we pick up right there.
Thank you very much. I know the issue of marijuana and our national approach to this has been a very topical issue. And as a matter of fact, many of the cases, including our Fontenoy case that involved the issue of marijuana, there's a lot of public reaction on this. My own personal perspective, and I have to be careful how I speak on this in the context of being Commissioner of Police with the responsibility of guiding a force for the enforcement of law. Having said that, I will say this. We have to recognize when we are doing things and if we are pushing against a tide of change. And this tide of change, we have seen what has been taking place regionally and internationally, in terms of the laws and the adaptations and movement with marijuana. We have also had policy statements being made by our Prime Minister and Minister of National Security on the approaches to be taken as it relates to marijuana. One of the responsibilities of public servants like myself and ministries and so is to take cue of policy statements, not only written directives of the intent of government, and start putting your mechanisms in place to respond appropriately to those circumstances. So I have heard our Minister of National Security on the issue of marijuana. Yes, as you rightly say, it is still on the books. And so, given the regional and international trend, the expressed intent of policy on a particular response with marijuana, as Commissioner, I have directed our officers to exercise greater discretion on the enforcement of marijuana, and particularly small quantities. But what we are seeing is that and the police has been doing that, in a number of cases, the police has been exhibiting a lot of restraint and discretion on small amounts. However, that discretion seemed to be met with a different type of response. And we have seen it, be it football matches, sporting games. People believe they have the liberty to now come out and smoke anywhere and everywhere. Now that will not be tolerated. Will not be tolerated, sorry. You cannot expect to go into public space, in the market and in the streets in town and in our stadium and so, and be smoking as if this is already legal. However, if the police executes operation in a particular area, your home or wherever, they will exercise some discretion. And discretion here, in my mind, has to be understood. Because if the police come to execute a warrant and individuals are belligerent, dealing with the police in a particular way, and you have to be arrested, then you probably find that you may be arrested. But recognizing the fact that you are committing an offense, and it is still an offense, you respond to the police in a way, more likely than not, the police will exercise a particular discretion, as I've indicated, given the trend, given the potential, the expressed policy directive that government intends to take on this matter. It will make no sense, in summary, it will make no sense that you are anticipating the possibility of legislation in a particular context and still enforcing arrests and criminal action. It just doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So the police has to treat with these matters in a particular way. Another misinterpretation that persons may have is that this type of concession and discretion is not applicable to large-scale trafficking of large quantities of marijuana. Additionally, we have evolved to a state where there are different types of cannabis, where the discretion cannot be the same because of the potency of these new creations or types of marijuana, hashish and the type. Some of them are very, very, very potent, and it is different to locally grown marijuana that you may have. So there is a lot to chew upon here. There is a lot for law enforcement to take into consideration as we exercise that discretion and obviously await the final legal directive, policy direction from our policymakers.
Right. I'm sure you'll be actively engaged as a stakeholder in the consultation and the discussions that will ensue, because as you rightfully say, there seems to be, we are going in a direction that it seems that it's going to get more engaging and a bit more relaxed, especially as it relates to the recreational and carrying small amounts of cannabis.
There is just one other point, Brenda, I would like to make on this. Marijuana has become normalized in society. And what do I mean by that? There was a period in our history where marijuana use was tabooed. was tabooed by society. If you smoke in marijuana, you can't date somebody's daughter, you can't whatever, because it was stigmatized very negatively.
Yeah.
We have evolved to a state where it has become normalized, where the question now you have to ask, before it would have been, who is smoking? Now the bigger question is, who is not smoking? You understand?
That's true.
And one person raised the question with me and said, they say, if we have to incarcerate,
let's use the word using.
Using. That's a better
using?
point. Using is a better expression. I agree. But one person raised with me, Mr. Martin, if we have to incarcerate or arrest everyone who is using marijuana, you might be putting 90% of the population into incarceration. I mean, that was his perspective. Not that I endorsed it, but that was his perspective. But the important point to note, here is that it has become normalized to the extent where people just don't see it as a crime.
Yeah.
And when you see those type of situations, you have to respond. You have to respond.
We're now using it in our food, in our medicine, and that's why I say let's replace smoking with using, because it's more of, there's so many additives, so it's more of a user. So that is why the conversations really have to be tailored in specific ways, and the consultations very active for us to get to that point.
I think that, you know, the conversation is important. I think your explanation makes sense in terms of how you use your resources also. But here's the issue, Commissioner, that we hear about in terms of the force, in terms of the training, in terms of its accommodation. In other words, the facilities that the force is provided, because only with these resources you can do the best job possible. We hear that your headquarters is going to be relocated, that the fort is going to be used more as a historical, more as a museum, so to speak. Your fire department moving to the south, there are some questions about the fire services presence in the city and the implications if it moves to the south. But how do you look at the future of the force in terms of all these issues, the training, the facilities, you know, giving your force the resources that it needs to do the best job possible? Where do you see that? And particularly now, as we experience a reduction in government revenue for capital and other recurrent expenditures. But we must note, Brenda, I think the wardens, you know, the difference they're making with traffic, and the traffic issue too, Commissioner. I wish you would touched on this for a moment, because it's overwhelming now. You know, we know there's some restrictions in terms of vehicles, 10 years old, but some countries like Trinidad move it to 5 years. I mean, exponential in terms of the traffic now, and there's traffic jams all day in the city now. But please, for your reaction to some of those issues, Commissioner.
Thank you very much for that, Byron. Let me start by saying, we are in no way a perfect organization. We are faced with many deficiencies and challenges as it relates to assets, resources, and so forth. However, I do believe, and while we continue to push for improvement, there's no way to shelf this. While we do push for improvement in facilities and resources to better able effect our function, we are very cognizant that as a small and developing state, we will never have all of the ideal resources. So the management of the RGPF is of the mindset that where there is scarcity and deficiency, there is a unique opportunity for ingenuity and creativity to maximize on the little that we have, or find other innovative ways in order to bridge those deficiencies that we can, and so that we can sustain our effectiveness. And maybe therein lies the opportunity to push us in the direction of stronger collaborations with our public and private stakeholders to improve our efficiencies.
Right.
So challenges definitely give you an opportunity. We are not perfect, as I've said, but certainly we are not short of anyway the effort and the desire in order to continue to serve this country to the best of our ability. On the issue of the fire department, and I'm happy that you raised this question because it allows me the opportunity to indicate two things. One, the movement of the fire department headquarters to the south is in no way will mean that the town will be left unattended. The intended construction of the new police headquarters will have a fire unit embedded in the headquarters. I cannot see, for example, Byron, that your house in Mount Morris is on fire and a truck have to respond from the south or Beaulieu or Happy Hill or wherever. And even within the city itself. So definitely that is within the design. There was some misconceptions that the entire fire department moved to the south, but the design definitely from day one has always included a fire unit embedded in the headquarters element. Now secondly, the futuristic design of the RGPF will be with a shelving off of fire department and potentially immigration. The Minister of National Security and Prime Minister has spoken about that on more than one occasions. We will see when that will eventually become a reality. And I do support the move for many reasons. And my mind flashed right back to Ivan. In Ivan, we had one commissioner of police whose sombrero was as broad as anything else, in charge of one and everything. And because of that, the failure then to have someone else nudging that we need to consolidate, we need to meet, we need to plan a response to this impending system, there was a collapse in proper planning and preparation to respond. Now with the creation of these separate departments, you have prisons, customs, fire, immigration, police, all as separate entities. In my mind, there is the requirement now for a national security committee that will have to meet frequently, that will have to discuss issues of enforcement and national security issues. And I believe that when this is done, we will be better for it. Because you now have equal heads coming together to address particular issues of national security and being more proactive in responding to those situations. So I think certainly that is a move in the right direction by shelving off both immigration and fire department for their own independence. Of course, government will determine the appropriateness for this to be done. But I think it is the move in the right direction. Traffic is a formidable task, remains a formidable task, because we have a significant increase in the number of vehicles on our roads, but our infrastructure by and large remains static. It remains the same. And within that infrastructure, you have defects, broken bridge, broken road, potholes, whatever. And of course, the increase in density significantly increases the probability of accident occurring. And so one cannot ask more, or ask enough rather, for vigilance for all of us that are driving. I believe we are seeing some improvement in attitudes on the road, but still we are having too many accidents. As you're well aware, just 2 days ago we had another fatal accident as well on the road. But another thing that needs to improve here, and we've had a number of accidents, even this year, we had fatal accidents involving a truck and bus and so forth, where a number of people died. And so coming up with a mechanism for inspecting, regularly checking, whether it is impromptu or otherwise, the mechanical integrity of vehicles on the road, particularly public service vehicles, is of paramount importance. So as we have increased and as the infrastructure remains limited, we must look to see what else can we do. It's not just education, but we must have another level as well that can help to push people in the direction of having your vehicle well maintained.
But since you're managing traffic, quote unquote, as you mentioned, the infrastructure, we have so much miles of road, the more vehicles you put into it, the slower it goes. So it doesn't go at all.
That's right.
Do you plan to advise the government on some thresholds or policies that is going to better manage the flow? Because we can't go to indefinite limits.
Well, thank you, Byron. I think the creation of the new transport board is to look the Transport Authority now, it's not a board anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
The Transport Authority is to do just that. We have heard the probability of the bringing back of traffic lights, and there are investments in that direction. And of course, what you would see with the creation of the new Transport Authority, there will be a greater consolidated effort on the whole issue of transportation, down to bus routes and way to apply, and how things should actually pan out in that regard. So I believe with the coming on board of the authority, of which the police is a member on that authority, we will be able to make recommendations, but it also provides the opportunity within that authority to leverage wider stakeholder knowledge as to what best can be done to manage the circumstances we are faced with.
Just last week we had a fire in the city. We still have the niggling situation of the derelict buildings that trust that the police along with the government can really act upon soonest in the public interest. But just in Commissioner, the general response to fire, and the RGPF's readiness and the availability of resource. Just address this in terms of the general public.
Thank you very much. The first issue on the derelicts properties in the town, that is of paramount importance and concern. I have already flagged this for action, and there are a number of properties we have already identified. And we will be in the process in collaboration with health and other ministries that has a stake in those issues, because not only is the risk of fire, but there's also a health issue, rodents and so forth coming out of these properties. So there will be a concerted effort to try to gut those buildings, clean them up, and to hold persons responsible for getting it done. That certainly is on the table and something that we are going to address. As it relates to the resources of the fire department, one of the accomplishments we have for 2020 certainly is the addition of 2 new fire appliances to our fleet. This, for the first time in our history, provides us with the potential of having a fire appliance in every single parish. Of course, that would resound in improved speed of response and potentially saving lives and property. There have been some concerns of the last fire that we had on Grenville Street, with seeing 3 fire appliances at the fire department and only 1 responded, and supported by a response from the airport. The reality is, and these are vehicles, the reality is, coincidentally, 2 of the fire appliances there are down. 1 was for a clutch, and unfortunately it cannot be procured locally. We had to order it from Japan. It has already been ordered and is in train. That is for the tanker support, the big one.
Okay.
And the other one is down for a starting motor, which we are getting out of the US. So we did actually order those 2 items, but it so happened, unfortunately, that the fire occurred while we await those parts to come. And certainly I do trust that by the time we get it, there wouldn't be any incident to occur between now and then, so that our response remains adequate. However, there were some rumors as well about the fire truck not arriving on the scene with water. And so forth. And that certainly is not true. I think it has been debunked. Yeah. The truck definitely responded with water. And what we need to understand is that when a truck arrives and uses out its water, if there is a hydrant, as there was in this case, the truck don't really need to refill. The truck recycles the water from the hydrant through the truck for power to pump onto the building. And we do that with fighting bushfires as well. We have partnerships with Nawasa and a number of individuals with water tanks. When we get the fire appliance on the site of the bushfire, these support stakeholders come in with trucks, connect into the fire truck, and the fire truck just keep pumping from the truck and not leave the site. So we don't have to leave to refill. All right? Going forward, we are putting mechanisms in place to improve our use of foam in critical fires, because foam has a greater potential in stifling fires initially, particularly in the town. The truck that we have now is outfitted for that. It can take the inductors to pump foam, and we are looking now in short order to have that in effect and have enough foam in stock that we can actually utilize it if ever, unfortunately, this is to reoccur anyway. Because we are very cognizant that our town by and large are filled with a number of old buildings. And in order to help preserving and saving property to some extent, we must improve our mechanism, understanding the reality of what we are treating with. But long and short, on that particular fire, I think the firemen did an excellent job containing the situation and limiting the damage only to that abandoned building in any significant way. There were minor damages to other buildings, but significantly, they've done an excellent job in containing that fire.
Right. So, policing through the pandemic. I know you said when you became, you took the job, you had no idea of, you know, what a year like this would look like. So, policing through this pandemic. And if you could talk to us specifically about, I know the Prime Minister is scheduled to address the nation tonight at 8 o'clock. And we have a very, you know, dicey situation, lots of concerns. It is the week of Christmas, so many moving parts. But first, address for us just policing through the pandemic, and if we can hone in on, you know, what's to come in this week, which is so critical, and the next week in areas of policing.
Could we also add to what you're saying for him to respond, the question of vending, how the police intend to treat this in this you know, Christmas period.
Okay, thanks very much. Both very relevant issues. As indicated in my opening comments, there is no way and nothing I would have done in my career prepared not just me, but the entire RGPF for policing in a pandemic. And I believe that is the same for the rest of the region, maybe the rest of the world. So certainly it was uncharted waters. It was learning as you go and trying a number of things, seeing what works, and where it failed, adjusting to suit. Fortunate for us, responding to that particular circumstances, many things went good for us. We took our cue with the pandemic from the time of the onset, and I think when it started hitting the United States, we took it really, really serious and started our in-house preparation.
Right.
To the extent that the RGPF prepared a SOP, a protocol for officers to start following, not just if, but when we are impacted. We were able to share that with the RSS, and that became an initial template for police forces in the region.
That's wonderful.
After that, of course, there was significant improvement to the document, and then there were other guidance coming out from the International Association, International Police Association as well came out, giving further guidance and improvement on what we would have done. But the point here is that we were very proactive in getting ready, because we understand that when it impacts police officers being part of society, if we did not take that proactive measure of educating, establishing protocols, and letting officers understand very clearly how we will treat, we were likely to be part of the panic that would take place in the wider society. So that worked well for preparing us in responding. We did not get everything right, far from, but we did a number of things right. And a lot of those things that were done actually contributed significantly to us receiving a lot of support and recognition from the community. We were instrumental in creating some groups that never existed before. We had a sub-security cluster that brought together police, customs, prisons, immigration, airport, all factoring in port into one entity to discuss daily through Zoom how we manage. We also created a supply cluster, which had to do with all of the major wholesalers, supermarkets, and so forth, guiding them and working out strategies on how we can better serve the nation. And this was all led by RGPF, in all honesty. And so there are some things to the unsuspecting eye that seem to have occurred seamlessly, but by and large, a lot of work went into it. And thank God, knock wood, it worked out well. Yeah. We are where we are, looking forward. And and certainly the intentions of government as expressed, the RGPF always find innovative ways to support the intention of government. And whether or not Prime Minister's address later comes with any new innovations or adjustment that is required that have an impact on law enforcement and on the RGPF, I think just as we did in the initial lockdown period, so too we will respond and we will deliver. I will just want to appeal to Grenada that nothing that we intend to do can work without your support. Yeah. And we can get through this. We can beat this. Grenada was down to just 2 cases that was imported before this. And so we have done it before, we can do it again. What we want is the right mindset, the necessary support, and I'm confident that Grenada will defeat this in short order.
The vending.
Yeah, the issue of the vending. There was an issue of vending that raised prior to the onset of this, and to try to create an opportunity of viability for the ordinary vendor, an adjustment was made, as we make every Christmas, to accommodate for persons to make a livelihood. And we have had some adjustment with blocking 1 or 2 of the streets to allow that to happen. And as soon as that happened, and arrangements made for it, we had this issue crop up on us. We may have to revisit this because of the environment in which it occurs. It's a very delicate issue because we do have vending taking place at the stadium, innit? Yes. So we have to look to see if this has to continue, how best can it continue to ensure that, because the priority now is preventing spread and containing this virus. And we do not want to make any decision that will negatively impact that overarching intent, or we shooting ourselves in the foot. Yeah. So certainly it is something that we probably will have to look at. We know persons want to make a livelihood. So we look to see what format can be adopted, if any at all, for this to continue or not. If it has to be shelved and pulled, then it will be shelved and pulled. And this is one of the issues that are down for discussion today. So we can finally decide on this particular matter.
Okay. Yeah. Going forward though, this is a week of Christmas. We're not just COVID. It's normally a week where, the RGPF normally asks us to intensify our vigilance with, at home and whatever we do. Well, we'll be at home this Christmas. Yes. That's definitely Christmas at home. That's the theme for this Christmas. But just in terms of still moving around, folks who are still, trading, doing commerce and using transfer of cash and all of that, just some words for them.
Yeah. Certainly we are having a COVID Christmas. Yeah. And there is nothing more important now. And I think the managing of the pandemic is on the front burner. It is a sort of priority 1. So my first advice is that as you do what you have to do, as what is permitted to do, you do it ensuring that you're applying the protocols. Sanitization regularly, wearing of your face mask, and physical distancing is paramount. And the faster we get on board on doing that, the faster that becomes part of our attitudinal change in treating with this issue, the better we all will be for it. Now, of course, security is a crucial issue that the community must take a stake in. And too many of our very housebreaking and stealing, and particularly the stealing of cars, which we've had a few of this year, too many of them, to me, are the result of individual negligence. While I feel good about it, that people still feel safe enough in Grenada to leave their homes with windows open and probably even doors unlocked. At the same time, it is negligent and contributing to housebreaking and stealing. Additionally, many of the cars that has been stolen, people getting up and leaving the keys in the car, believe it or not. They are leaving the keys in the car. And I think CID need to be commended. They did an excellent video that is being circulated that do not leave your keys in your car. So the major appeal for us is that as we go through the Yuletide season, make sure that property is properly secured. That will go a long way in preventing criminals. Bear in mind, everyone wants to have a good Christmas, including potential criminals that will seek to prey upon your own negligence and vulnerabilities. For crime to happen, let me put it this way, there need to be three things. You need to have a victim, an accused, and an opportunity. You, the potential victim, can deny the criminal of the opportunity to commit crime by hardening your target. Lock your vehicles and secure your houses and other property. If we remove anyone in that triangle, the opportunity, the victim, or the accused, in any way, a crime cannot be committed. We do our best to try to be proactive and assertive by police presence on the ground to deter and take away the opportunity. We expect you, members of the public, to also play your part.
Commissioner, how is the RGPF? How are the officers doing? I mean, the force have been stretched thin. You've been everywhere. COVID committee, airport, all over Grenada. And it's about, your forces are roughly around 700?
Well, if you're talking about actual uniformed persons, yes, it's about that.
Right. So how is
but
the
our
force?
numbers are above that.
How are you doing? How are the men doing? And the men and women.
What do you want to say to them today?
What do you want to say to them? Yeah.
It is indeed a significant challenge for the force and for the men and women of the force. At this Christmas time, all officers are called back from leave to work. So you can't get vacation during Christmas. We understand that our vacation and holiday and time down comes after, because we serve in interests of the public. It's not about ourselves, it's about members of the public. And the officers do an awesome job, quite frankly. And as I've said before, it's not that we are perfect, but certainly we do an excellent job given our capacity and capability at this point in time, and will continue to thrive to do better. But the accomplishments of the force has nothing really to do with me. It has nothing really to do with the executive. It is the men and women, as you rightly identify, on the ground that are doing the responding, the investigating, and treating with those matters on a daily basis. They're the ones that are making the material difference. While we look at policy actions, decisions, and so to be taken, if they are not implemented on the ground as designed by the men and women of the force, we are not going anywhere. So kudos, recognition, and praise is deserving to them for the efforts they are making. And at this point in time, as Commissioner, I am deeply grateful for the efforts they have given, not just for 2020, but particularly during my tenure thus far as the Commissioner of Police.
Anything, any other high points you'd like to leave with us before we say goodbye?
The only other thing I would probably want to highlight, because it would seem as though crime and the COVID pandemic environment prevented us from achieving anything else. So it is important for me to flag, and I believe my officers might be waiting for me to say that. Some of the significant accomplishments for 2020, notwithstanding all of the challenges that we just discussed. A major one was, for the first time in our history again, a medal and ribbon system was designed for the police force. You see, we're wearing medals and ribbons on our chests and so forth now, to recognize officers for good conduct and years of service. And this is significant because not every officer gets promoted. But you must find mechanisms of recognizing and complimenting individuals. Another notable issue, and remember I spoke earlier about the trend of having at least 2 homicides a month since the start of January. Having recognized that, we created a cold case unit in April. Within 6 weeks of the cold case unit formation, 3 of the then 5 outstanding homicides were solved.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you did.
Yeah.
I saw that and wondered, okay, so why are we solving these cases from 5 years ago and 6 years ago?
One was up to 9 years ago.
So you created a cold case unit.
Yeah.
That's good.
Excellent.
That's good.
Yeah. We are on the threshold of finalizing a new promotion policy. It's basically there just for signing off and implementation. And this is significant for the force. It was a push by Prime Minister that promotions in the force must be more transparent and objective. But this brings a number of new elements to how we treat with promotion. No longer will promotion for the ranks of corporal up to sergeant, well, actually up to the recommendations we will make for inspector, be exclusive to the force. There will be a promotion selection board that will involve a number of persons from society, an attorney, somebody in human resource, etc., being part of that panel to make the suggestion, increasing the objectivity. And within that, for the first time as well, we will have officers, promotion will now be done instantly. For an example, if we do an assessment and 50 people qualify for promotion, arguably, but there are 10 vacancies, 10 persons will be promoted. But thereafter, as vacancies arise, we then go back to that pool for the next 4 years and promote instantly. So there will be no gap in filling the ranks that are required within the organization. Another major accomplishment was repairs and expansion to Carriacou Police Station and Coast Guard, and that remains ongoing, but is an improvement in the same facility and so forth that is going on. We also recruited an additional 15 officers to augment the fire department and Coast Guard. Logically, because of the expansion of the fire department to other parishes, we need more personnel. We also created a hybrid operational task force in Carriacou. So, and Coast Guard is permanently there. So we need to increase the numbers to be able to man that properly. And might I say, that has had a very positive impact on stemming the issue of transnational organized crime and providing better support, law enforcement support that is, to our sister islands as well in Carriacou. We also had a number of vehicles augmented to our fleet that will improve response, and of course the 2 fire appliances which I referred to earlier. So generally, I think notwithstanding our preoccupation and major focus being on dealing with COVID, notwithstanding that, we have done quite a bit in addition in improving internal capacities and improving the quality of service to members of the public.
Very well done.
Yeah.
Very well done.
That's quite impressive.
Yes, it is, considering, so again, special commendations to the RGPF. Thank you so much, Acting Commissioner Martin. You've really given us quite a program this morning.
I think so. We went way over the hour.
Way over the hour.
No, commendation. You know, the public, we have to recognize that the police is our friend. You know, the police is part of the community. The police is there for protection. You know, so I think, and the PR, right, I think, it's beginning to show, and that's a good thing. That's quite positive. But look, in 3 days and 4 days, it'll be Christmas. Is it 3 days or 4 days? I don't know. I'm anticipating, what would be the message later from the Prime Minister. Are we going to go into further restrictions?
We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. But again, I think the overarching message is that take personal responsibility for your behavior.
Yes.
It's up to you. It's up to the individual. And I like the confidence that the commissioner gave, that he's very confident that we can do this.
We can.
And we can. That's the truth. But it will take all of us individual efforts. So, Brenda, I just want to wish the commissioner and his family and the force a very safe Christmas.
Yeah.
I'm not going to use the word merry anymore, just safe.
No,
I'm
safe,
focus on safe. safe Christmas with families and whoever, and there's, pay attention to the protocol and the whole country in this regard.
I think the very premise of Christmas is about love and family,
sharing.
and it was the gift of God through His Son Jesus Christ. And probably one of the things for this year, 2020, is how that message of what Christmas truly is will be brought home, forcefully. But sometimes it calls on some great event, great tragic event, to bring us to a point of soberness. And so I guess this is what it is. But like my Mr. Campbell here, I would like to wish you and your family a very safe Christmas. And as you take care of the nation, take care of yourself, your mental and physical health. Yeah, in great shape.
Try.
And continue the good work, because guess what? We have more work to do.
Indeed.
So your parting words, Commissioner?
And thank you very much. It certainly was a pleasure to be here and afforded the opportunity to share with you and your listening and viewing audience. Maybe it's something we can probably do into the future. I trust that what we have said will definitely resonate with members of the public, and my only parting word is, please let us all apply the protocols and let us join the fight, the national fight, in stemming the spread of COVID-19 nationally. Merry Christmas to all of you, and to members of the public. Please enjoy, but as Byron rightly indicated, it's about having a safe Christmas. Thank you very much, and best wishes.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. This was an extended version of Perspectives this morning. We thank you very much for joining us. Those of you who joined us on MTV, I understand there were some audio issues earlier. Trust those were resolved, and you were able to really enjoy the program. And of course, our special guest panelist this morning, Acting Commissioner of Police, Edvin Martin. Stay safe, sanitize, wear your mask. Please maintain your physical distance, but socially, please check on your friends, check on your family. Have a great week, everybody. Have a very, very safe Christmas. And please tune in later on across all broadcast channels for the Prime Minister's message. I'm Brenda Baptiste. Bye-bye.
Give me one moment. I'm going in the building real quick to come back. Season's greetings. I am Detective Constable number 767 Mason, attached to the Criminal Investigations Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force. Property crimes such as housebreaking and stealing, burglary, robbery with violence, just to list a few, can become very prevalent around this time of year. These crimes are consequential crimes, and offenders can serve up to 30 years in prison.
For this holiday season, the RGPF urges you to be vigilant and practice personal and household security. Business owners are encouraged to install digital cameras for property surveillance.
Protect yourself by reporting all forms of theft, criminal activities, and suspicious behavior to your nearest police station. Or you can call us at 440-3921 or 911 or 440-3999. Help us to help protect you and your loved ones for this holiday season.
A message from the Criminal Investigation Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force.
COVID-19 spreads from person to person through the droplets that are produced when someone coughs or sneezes, which makes it easy to spread between people in close contact. Now let's get prepared to stay healthy.
To reduce your chance of catching or spreading COVID-19, practice these simple everyday preventative measures. Droplets can also land on surfaces, so ensure that you wash your hands frequently for a minimum of 20 seconds or sing the happy birthday song twice. Avoid touching your face, especially your eyes, nose, and mouth. If soap and water are not readily available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with an alcohol content between 60 and 90%. 70% is ideal.
When you cough or sneeze, cover your nose and mouth with a flexed elbow or a tissue. Dispose of the tissue immediately and then wash your hands. If you notice someone has a fever and cough or other symptoms of respiratory illness, avoid close contact when possible. Let's all do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. Our health is our collective responsibility.